this may embolden the radicals in Israel to push for faster settlement building and possibly even annexation of the West Bank.
Yes.
That would then lead to the Abraham Accords countries, such as the UAE, breaking from the Abraham Accords. And we are no further forward to a genuine, free Palestinian state.
Britain has recognised Palestinian statehood, an historic move which will achieve precisely what? Well, it's infuriated Israel and Israel's supporters, who say the great majority of nations gathered at the UN in New York now, as I speak, are rewarding Hamas for the murderous October the 7th attack. Now, the government and the list of, some 150 and growing number of countries out of 193 at the UN say they're showing solidarity with Palestinians and the goal of a two-state solution in the Middle East. Israeli leaders are clear. They are dead set against that idea. Will that change? And what difference will recognising a Palestinian state in principle make without a plan to create one in reality? Well, we'll talk it through on today's show, and we'll be asking, what is the plan for Palestinian statehood? Because there is one. Israel hasn't bought into it, but Donald Trump has, however tentatively. It's the plan cooked up by Tony Blair and his team. And we'll ask whether it may become the basis for a formula for peace in the Middle East. And a little later, Nigel Farage and his Reform UK party have laid out another scheme to clamp down on migration to the UK. This one is about legal migration, and it involves deporting hundreds of thousands of people who are here legally. Could that work? Should it work? Send me a text, 87222, start with the word Times, or tweet to @TimesRadio. I'm going to start then with the story of the UN General Assembly, which has now opened in New York as the organisation marks its 80th anniversary. The General Secretary, Carlos Guterres, has been addressing the floor.
At this moment, the principles of the United Nations are under assault as never before. As we meet, civilians are targeted and international law trampled in Gaza, the Ukraine, Sudan, and beyond.
Carlos Guterres. Now, after a ceremonial start, a meeting on the two-state solution between Israel and Palestine will get going this evening. It'll be jointly hosted by France and Saudi Arabia. President Macron is expected to join that growing list of leaders officially recognising a Palestinian state. Look, let's first then consult Tim Marshall, the former foreign correspondent, author of Prisoners of Geography. Welcome back to the show, Tim.
Hello, John.
It's good to have you here then. So Britain says yes, Canada, Australia, France and Belgium, that's coming up. They're not Germany or Italy yet, and around 150 others. It's an overwhelming majority at the UN, and it leaves Israel so increasingly isolated, Tim. But all they're going to get for it is Netanyahu's condemnation and Trump's dismissal.
Yeah, Trump speaks at the UN General Assembly tomorrow and will probably dismiss it. Netanyahu speaks on Friday, and, well, we already know what he thinks and will say. The Palestinians declared a state in 2011, and as you just reported, John, about 150 states recognise it as a state. So what difference? Very little in the short term, but I think these countries are trying to add their weight to the moral argument, which of course can be made, that Palestine deserves to be a state and what comes with that. My worry is that we don't know the consequences yet. The consequences that could flow from it are a peaceful, democratic Palestine that builds institutions and roots out corruption and puts an end to violence and lives in peace with its neighbour. There is the possibility that after 70 years and certainly a decade after declaring statehood, they have not built strong institutions under very difficult circumstances. And the other problem, John, is that this may embolden the radicals in Israel to push for faster settlement building and possibly even annexation of the West Bank.
Yes.
That would then lead to the Abraham Accords countries, such as the UAE, breaking from the Abraham Accords, and we are no further forward to a genuine, free Palestinian state.
Right, so it is at least possible that these moves that we're seeing now could accelerate movement not in a positive direction. I want to come to the ideas, Tim, which are, I suppose, more in the air than on the table for the future of the Middle East and Palestine. But first, if I could, a question which may seem legal, but it is in many ways more of a live question. Britain, Tim, we know, they accepted back after the October the 7th outrage, they accepted Israel's right to defend itself.
Yes.
Britain is now calling for a ceasefire and an end to Israeli aggression. So if Israel is now recognised as a state, doesn't recognising it as a state on the part of Britain, does that not require Britain to sanction Israel for aggression, unjustified aggression against the national territory of Palestine?
I think that's why the Prime Minister yesterday in his address made sure he said that he condemned October 7th, that Hamas can have no future role, and the hostages should be released. So I know what you're doing with that, John, and yes, it is a point worth asking, but I don't think that the United Kingdom will be doing that just because they now say that Palestine is a state. I don't think they've quite got their ducks in a row yet. I called the Foreign Office a couple of times this morning, emailed them a couple of times saying, does this now mean that the consulate in East Jerusalem is an embassy? And they couldn't answer and haven't gone back to me. So I don't think they've yet worked out. And the point you put there, they're not going to go there.
No, it doesn't matter what I think, but I don't think they are either. But meanwhile, and just lastly, plan for peace, the day after plan. The only one in the air is Tony Blair's plan from the Tony Blair Institute, which is, we know, supported by tentatively, it seems, by Trump, by Arab states, conditionally. Netanyahu said to be looking at it constructively, though that should not be confused with supporting it. What are your thoughts on that plan?
This is where I think the Saudi-French meeting that they've called today is of more interest. It's important that countries are saying they recognise Palestine as a state, even if it has no concrete forward motion on it. But it's the Saudis that are the key to the rebuilding of Gaza, towards putting in a form of Palestinian government that does not involve Hamas, because the Saudi leadership loathes Hamas. So I'll be watching the French-Saudi meeting this afternoon with more interest to see if something can come out of that than what are performative gestures, although I don't decry performative gestures. They have their place in politics, but that's what it is. The Western nations, partially because of the demographics, the modern demographics, are, especially in Britain and France, I think, are very aware of the depth of feeling. And so they are taking this gamble. Might make things better. It might make things worse.
All right. As always, really great to talk to you, Tim. Thank you. Tim Marshall there.
I think it gives the two key parties whose support for two states would be elemental, foundational, Israel and the United States, justification and excuse to be driven to their corners and not to focus on the proverbial day after. That said, Donald Trump is convening a meeting tomorrow. The Turks, the Jordanians, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Egyptians, have I left anyone out? To talk about the day after. But frankly, if they're depending on Donald Trump to essentially drive this conversation into a real plan and put political muscle behind it, I think they're misreading him. So again, performative virtue signaling. I'd only point out that of the three power centers, the Europeans, the Arab states, and Washington, none of them, not a one. We're now entering, John, in the next, 2 weeks, the third year of this war. None of them have imposed a single cost or consequence that normal humans would regard as significant or serious pressure on either Israel or Hamas to fundamentally change the trajectory of their mutually irreconcilable objectives with respect to Gaza.
Okay, so look, so the recognition of Palestine by these countries is, you consider, virtue signaling. It is performative. It is maybe counterproductive, which then begs the immediate next question: would the plan, the day after plan, the long-term peace plan, which has come from Tony Blair and his institute, would that have a better chance were it not for this recognition of Palestine by these states? But then, I mean, Netanyahu, he's immovable.
Yeah.
against progress. And Donald Trump shows no particular sign of moving either.
Exactly. So I don't think if there were no state recognition right now, the chances of answering the three basic questions that need to be answered: who or what will govern Gaza? Who or what will provide security and law and order? Who or what will preempt and prevent the prospects of a resurgence of Hamas as an insurgency or another Palestinian group that's armed? And who or what is going to provide not just the humanitarian assistance it's desperately required on a sustainable and predictable basis, but the reconstruction funds in the billions of dollars to offer 2 million people in an area roughly twice the size of the District of Columbia more security and the chance of prosperity.
Yes.
Who's going to do that? Who's going to own it? Who's going to embrace it?
Yes. Well, so
The answer is no one.
yeah, which is a flat and discouraging answer to that question. It is fair to say, Aaron, isn't it? The Blair plan, let's call it that, is the only plan at the moment which seems to address all of the questions you raise there. I mean, it is, and you agree, and it also echoes some of the plans we had from Egypt and Jordan a little while back. So if that's the case, and what you're looking for is that sort of progress, if what you're looking for is some sort of buy-in by Arab states, including Saudi Arabia, if you're looking for some way to get life back into what we called before the Abraham Accords, how is that to be achieved? Is it even possible?
Well, that's the key. And one missing ingredient, John, that's been missing from the Israeli-Palestinian negotiations since the last serious effort, the only serious effort that brought an American president, a PLO chairman, who had a monopoly on the forces of violence within Palestinian society, and a determined Israeli prime minister together at Camp David 25 years ago. I mean, I was there.
Yeah.
And at the end of that 2-week summit, on the core issues, Jerusalem border, security, refugees, end of all conflict and claims, the gaps were as wide as the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
They have grown galactically since. And the missing ingredient, John, is leadership. There is none in Israel. There is none among the Palestinians, and there is none in Washington. So even if you gave Tony Blair the benefit of the doubt that this was the greatest, wisest, most extraordinary peace plan in human history, the benefit of the doubt,
Yes.
you need the horses to pull the wagon.
Yes.
And where are they?
No, I mean, we need a kind of leadership, which at the moment does not exist. Last question, and very, very briefly then. I mean, Donald Trump has it within his power to provide leadership and maybe make a significant difference. Benjamin Netanyahu is simply turning his face against doing any such thing. And some argue that's because he's concerned with his political survival and even his wish to stay out of jail on corruption charges. Now, if all of those things are then arguably true, does that leave us with no hope? Because Benjamin Netanyahu and hardliners in the cabinet, Aaron, they cannot expect to keep on the onslaught, the military operation in Gaza indefinitely, not forever.
You'd think not. Donald Trump is a key here, but I don't think he's reached the conclusion that the price that needs to be paid for ending the war in Gaza, which is something no American president, with the possible exception of Eisenhower, was willing to do in threatening political and economic sanctions against Ben-Gurion if he didn't withdraw Israeli forces from Sinai, and it worked. I don't think Donald Trump is anywhere near confronting that kind of price. So unless Benjamin Netanyahu comes between something that this Donald Trump really wants, and I don't know what that would be, I'm not sure he's willing to pay that price. This is a man who thinks about the American national interests tethered to his financial, political, and vanity interests. So we've not yet seen Donald Trump wanting something so badly that would make him look really, really good and accomplish something really, really significant that would move him off acquiescing, if not enabling, the Netanyahu government's policies in Gaza.
Okay. I can't call that encouraging, but it is always fascinating to talk to you. Aaron David Miller, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, John. Thanks for having me.